And here we go. We are officially live over on our streams. So, for all our people that have been waiting here in the chat, man, I appreciate you guys having some patience. We had to knock that first segment out. Long story short, we had some technical difficulties, man. I was ready to fire up the show, and all of a sudden, the whole system needed to like reboot, reset, and all that good stuff. Kind of came out of nowhere. But here we are, ready to roll. And just to kind of recap you guys on the stream, if you didn't listen via radio, looks like Mike was uh, he was smart enough to go check out the radio side of things and heard that we were live there. You didn't miss anything. We kind of just laid the table about what we were going to talk about today, which is we're going to update you guys on the latest with the whole Sorsby situation out of Texas Tech. Looks to be a little bit worse than maybe some people initially thought. Not looking too good for him. And it's, I guess that's a direct reflect on Texas Tech situation, given they paid the guy $5 million allegedly to transfer to their school and be their quarterback this upcoming season. So that is something we'll take a look at. Plus, we'll look at this roster for 2026 now that the 2026 NFL draft has concluded, and we'll jump ahead and kind of talk about some players that we think could hear their names called in the 2027 NFL draft. And then also, I really want to dive into this conversation we had yesterday about the logistics of having multiple five-star top-tier quarterback prospects. And is it sustainable? How does it compare to maybe the transfer portal route? We'll do all that here on the show. So that's all we really talked about in that first segment, just trying to get in, get out. But about to bring us back here now. You guys know the drill. If you're just tuning in, man, hit that like button on your way in. We appreciate that. It helps us out. Did good yesterday. Let's see if we can top it today, man. Keep smashing that like button. If you guys are new, subscribe, all that good stuff. And kick back, relax. We're about to roll. And welcome into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. A little bit fresher, cleaner start here. Segment number 2. Now that everything's all good, our bearings are in check. All right. That being said, Reed, got to figure out where we should start here on the show today, because I do want to take a look at the 2026 roster and then see how that could look for this 2027 NFL draft coming up. Again, just to recap you guys, Alabama did, in fact, have 2 first-rounders this last draft that took place over the weekend. Ty Simpson going to the Rams, Caden Proctor going to the Miami Dolphins. And speaking of both those guys, there was something that came out, Reed. I don't know if you saw this. I know I sent it to you. I can play it here in a moment. But Ty Simpson pretty much, I guess he admitted that, hey, I actually had some secret meetings that no one knew about until now. I'm kind of breaking the news here with the Rams, Sean McVay specifically. And to be fair, that doesn't shock me. That's the NFL draft for you, right? Everybody tries to hold their cards close to the vest, and makes it a little bit more interesting when you think about the whole deal with Sean McVay and the press conference, which is why I said, you just never know, right? It's easy to say, hey, man, look at his body language. Look at the way he's kind of addressing it. And I think it was a number of things, but it is interesting when you hear that now. You're like, okay, well, if he met with Ty secretively and they obviously had a lot of interest there, clearly there was probably a little bit of an overreaction to the initial press conference when people were kind of picking up on how he addressed the media or the body language. He didn't look overly enthusiastic and all that good stuff. So we'll play that here in a moment. I thought that was interesting. But one other thing that I want to bring up real quick while it's on my mind, we mentioned Caden Proctor, and this reminded me, for anybody that's going to be in town next week, there's a really cool event that I definitely recommend you guys to check out. And it's actually being held by none other than, local product, Wilkin Formby, right? Who's from the Tuscaloosa area, played here for, several years, started a number of years, recently transferred to Texas A&M, but he obviously really cares about, his hometown in Tuscaloosa and wants to give back. He actually does that often. So this is not the first. He's actually done a number of things in the community, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. So I'm going to put a graphic on the screen here in a moment, but I just want to bring it up real quick. They're actually holding, it's called a Revival Night Block Party. It's kind of cool, Reed. Now, I don't know if you know what a block party is, but outdoor kind of get together. But they're going to have all types of things like free food and games. It's going to be family friendly. It's a community event. They're wanting to invite all the kids out, right? And I think you can still go if you're not a kid, because it's a big community event. But they specifically want to really put something on for these kids, kind of give back. I know Scotty Hollins, who serves as one of our chaplains with football, he'll also be in attendance. And they'll be sharing testimonies, kind of spreading the word of God, and ultimately giving back to the community, free food, free games and stuff like that. So if you guys are around next week, I believe it is on Friday, May 8th, it kicks off at 6 p.m. Make sure you guys go check it out. It's over in Northport, 3500 West Circle, in that community building. You can go check out Wilkin Formby, and there'll be more. I know when I was talking with some of the folks helping put it on, I know they mentioned Caden Proctor. He's really close with him. I know he was maybe back in town. I don't know if he'll definitely be there as well, but I'm assuming there will be some other either current or former players maybe attending as well. So it's a free event for the kids. Make sure you guys go check that out. Again, it's the Revival Night Block Party. So really good stuff, man. Go get you some good word, some good food, and have a good time, man. But I just wanted to bring that up real quick. That said, Reed, the other thing we mentioned too is that whole discussion yesterday about the whole, having a third five-star quarterback commit to Alabama. Logistically, kind of how does that look? And I know that conversation's been coming up. I didn't realize it was such a big conversation, so I saw a little bit more on it earlier today, and so we'll talk about that here in a moment. But first, I want to start with this whole. I want to go back to this Ty Simpson thing that I mentioned. Right, I want to play this clip for you guys because it's almost like this whole saga, Reed. It feels like it's like a drama series, right? I mean, you go from everything that's kind of come out since the draft, where there was meeting with the parents and getting intel on, hey, should he leave, should he not? So this is the latest from Ty Simpson. He joined a radio show via ESPN, and he kind of dropped the news that, hey, I actually did in fact have some contact with Sean McVay, and this is what Ty Simpson had to say.
Let's go back to when I last saw you before the draft. Was at Alabama's A-Day game, the spring game, and we're talking on the sidelines, and you had a look to you like, dude, I'm going in the first round. Don't worry about it. And you had the comment, by the way, just to let people know, you really didn't care where you went.
Meetings with Coach McVay, and I was trying to be on script and do what everybody told me, not to tell anybody. So it was something to where I knew that they were interested. I just didn't know when. And then sure enough, I had a lot of confidence in myself, and that's why I decided to come out. If it wasn't them, I felt like that it was going to be somebody else.
You mentioned secret meetings there. So take us behind the scenes. What was that like when you first met Sean McVay, and then before the draft and then after the draft?
No, it was great. We met at the facility, and it was something to where, we just talked for hours and hours, and it was just football. It was just straight football. And it was like a kid in a candy store, where me and him are sitting there, and we're just going back and forth. Just you can tell the obsession he has for the game, and you can tell the love he has for quarterback play. It's something that I appreciate, and it's something that I enjoy because I really enjoy playing the position and value the position. So being with him and then getting to know him, and then just seeing a little bit of how I would get coached if I was fortunate enough to go there was something that I couldn't have asked for a better situation.
You sneaky SOB. So hold on a minute. At the draft, you're saying, I haven't met with McVay, but you're telling me that you guys met for hours and going over film before the draft?
Yeah, it was just it was something to where I didn't want. I was told to not say anything, because I didn't want anybody to know. But we had one meeting, and we kept it private, and it was just something to where it happened that way.
So interesting stuff there, Reed. I feel like there always is something else coming out, whether it was like we mentioned earlier, like all the communication before he even made a decision to come out. Now this, because initially it was made to seem like he hadn't really had too much contact, at least with Sean McVay. So what do you make of that, Reed? And I know, Ian, I think it was who he's talking with, mentioned something about at the draft. He said he hadn't spoke to McVay. Did he make that comment after he was picked, or was this before? Do you know?
I don't know, but I do think though that like this kind of shuts down a lot of those like narratives that people are like Sean McVay wasn't happy, and he even came out and just was saying I didn't get to see the whole clip, but that really wasn't the whole issue. And I do think Sean McVay loves the Ty Simpson pick, and it makes a little bit more sense now that they had this this private meeting or, private session, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, no, it really doesn't surprise me, I guess you could say, but I'm kind of glad it shuts down those narratives. So maybe people won't, and I even saw this on a video yesterday, how, I guess the expectation is for the Rams. They were saying, they're Super Bowl contenders or whatever, and they're just that one piece away. And maybe if they don't reach that this next season, maybe they won't go back to say, hey, maybe we would have drafted someone else, right? Because now it seems like, hey, Sean McVay, like, in my opinion, it seems like Sean McVay actually wanted this guy. There's no more of this narrative of, oh, he didn't seem happy or this wasn't the guy he wanted,
No, I agree. And listen, I don't think, at least for me, I never felt it was as if they didn't want him at all. Even Sean McVay, even with that whole thing, and I know what you mean by that. But I think there's some people that made it seem like, oh, look at Sean McVay's body language. He didn't want him. No, I think everybody, was really impressed with Ty Simpson. I think he's a great fit for what they do in Los Angeles. I think it's a perfect match. It was more so just about, is it worth it to go and get this guy at this spot, right? I mean, we have the 13th pick. We don't expect to have such a high draft pick, probably definitely not next year. Again, they initially had 29. This came via trade. So really, Reed, it's interesting, depending on the perspective that you take. If you view it like I've heard, a lot of people from the Rams side of things come out and say, hey, we don't know when the next time it will be that we have a pick that high, which is them basically being confident and saying, our franchise in a good spot. We have a really good roster. We don't really see that slowing down anytime soon. The only way we could hope to even move up to a spot, even in that mid-range, like 13, I mean, think about how much draft capital it would cost. You would have to trade a whole bunch to get there. You already had it sitting right there in your lap. You feel really confident about your roster where it stands right now. If there's truly not a guy that you don't feel like you could even get in the second or third, because they had a second round pick as well, it almost makes a lot more sense to do what they did. So I totally understand that. But I also understand the other opinion that, well, you're this close from winning the Super Bowl. There's got to be one guy that you felt confident in taking at 13 that wasn't a quarterback that could potentially change your roster and maybe give you a little bit of an edge. Not saying there necessarily is one guy, because I know how football works, right? I mean, there's so many players on a football field. One guy can't do it himself. But if you just had a glaring need and there was a guy there, say their pass rush wasn't where it needed to be and there was an edge rusher sitting right there waiting on them, then I will look at that and say, hey, man, that was a little negligent in my opinion that you didn't take that. But from my understanding, and I haven't looked at the Rams' latest depth chart, I don't keep up with them specifically like I do, let's say, Alabama. I don't know if there was one. Now, I do know they need receiver help because, Devontae Adams is 33, I believe. Puka Nacua has been, injured. He's dealt with injuries, but even off the field, I know he just was in like rehab or doing something. So those are, two of your top receivers right there. There definitely is a case to say, hey, Mekhi Lemon, that's the most common answer here instead of Ty Simpson that I've seen. Mekhi Lemon, why would you not take a guy like him, a guy that many people even viewed as potentially, one of the best receivers, or if not the best receiver? I know Cornell Tate went, I think, 4 overall, but a lot of people view Mekhi Lemon as the best receiver. So I also can understand that argument, given that Matthew Stafford's coming off of an MVP season. So I really just, what's going to happen, Reed, is hindsight is going to be 2020. We get to the end of the season and we look back and they have injuries at receiver and it looks like they really could have benefited. And say, let's say, not even just that either that happens, or let's say Mekhi Lemon goes off. And as a rookie, he's 1,000-yard receiver. I'm telling you right now, people are going to bring this back up. We all know that. It's going to come.
They will.
Yeah, it's going to come. There's no denying that. But if the Rams go on to win the Super Bowl and everything works out just fine, of course, it's going to seem fine. Then 2 years, 3 years down the road, if Ty, and everything works out perfect the way people anticipate it does, Ty ends up taking over the reins from Matthew Stafford and goes on to have a great NFL career. Everybody's going to look back and call Snead, the general manager, a genius, right? I mean, that's just kind of how this whole thing works. Hindsight's always going to be 2020. People are going to have opinions now, but we're not really going to know exactly who really, panned out or what really, I guess, would be deemed successful or the right move until we look back after having some more stuff down the road.
And see, Christian, I didn't even think about it until you brought it up regarding the whole point of, will the Rams ever I guess, in the next few years, have this high of a pick. Like, I didn't even think about that. Like, just, natural instinct. And then, but now thinking about taking that into consideration, that kind of, if anything, kind of fully backs my, decision of, I think Ty was the right pick in that sense. Right.
Yeah.
Because not necessarily like, if maybe they had a pick between, I remember originally they had like the 29th pick and then they traded it away. And if they could have got him maybe in between that range, I think that would have been a lot more, ideal. But once again, though, when are you going to have in the next, let's just say 5 years, are they going to have another, top 15 pick with how Stafford and how the offense is kind of trending? You know what I mean?
Probably not. Probably not, unless they're willing to trade and
Exactly.
offer up some big capital. Could be a big player as well, right? I mean, you don't really know. So with that said, we'll know more down the road. But listen, a matter of fact, I'll give you an example. I think it was Jordan Schultz that posted this. I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw, my former teammate Brian Burns in a Raiders uniform, and it's like a graphic of him, Max Crosby, and somebody else. And I'm like, hold on, wait. Oh no, man! I'm like, I know my guy just signed the whole deal with the Giants. I'm like, surely he didn't get traded. No, I read the bio. Of course, they're saying, oh, the Raiders could have had Brian Burns, Max Crosby, and so, because they were basically saying the Raiders elected to draft Cleveland Farrell ahead of Brian Burns, which again, a little bit different of a situation. They're kind of comparing two guys that played the same position, defensive ends, edge rushers. And since they took the wrong guy, I say the wrong guy in the sense that Brian Burns has gone on to, I think he's like second in the league in sacks. You get my point. No disrespect to Cleveland Farrell, but I get it, right? I mean, Brian Burns, Pro Bowler, all pro type dude. Max Crosby, same thing. You could have had both those guys in the same draft. Would have been crazy. But again, hindsight's 2020. They made that decision. Can't go back in time. But anyway, just thought that was some interesting updates to this whole Ty Simpson to LA saga that just has been going on. Really kind of stole the show of the draft. We got to hit a timeout when we come back. We'll keep on rolling. And speaking of the draft, we'll do what the I guess the main purpose of the stream was today. We'll take a look at this roster for this season and see what guys we think could maybe hear their names called in that 2027 draft, specifically earlier on in the draft. We'll talk about some potential first rounders, maybe some day two guys, and give a look at this roster. Then we definitely still got to talk about that whole logistics side of things and that whole argument debate, which is going to be interesting, man, because I see both sides of it. But I want to talk about that right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC. Do you have cracks or pop? All right, let's see who we got in here. Sorry, guys. The stream's kind of a little all over the place today because we're trying to figure everything out. Let's see. Who we got in here? Jake, what's up? We got QD, what's up? Hopefully you guys are still hanging around. We got Smitty on the phone lines. We'll go to him too. Mike, what's going on? Let's see. Kenji. Jake says Clint had a good point. He said he believes it's cheaper to recruit elite quarterbacks out of high school rather than trying to get elite guys out of the portal. Yeah, and I understand Clint's point. We'll talk about that when he joins us here in a moment. But just to kind of preview my thoughts on this is kind of what I was explaining. Because I want to be clear. You guys watched the show yesterday. I'm all for getting, as many, top talent as we can, swinging, trying to, get these guys in here, develop them, retain them. Like, you guys know me, like that's the approach I like. I'm not a big, hey, let's, overly depend on the transfer portal. I'm not that type of guy at all. However, I think when it comes to roster management and budgeting, because money doesn't grow on trees, right? And you're talking about having to, allocate money in certain positions or areas of a football team, I do think it is worth the conversation having. Again, not saying what we're doing is wrong. This is sports talk. We're just talking. I think you got to remind people sometimes. I think sometimes they think like, oh, if you make a comment or a question like this, it's because you're trying to criticize them. No. I'm just curious from a logistics standpoint, right? Because here's the way I look at it. And I made this point earlier. We might not have been live on the stream at this point. It might have been on radio. But, you get right now. Well, let's look at next year. Next year, you'll have Keelan Russell. You'll have Jet Tamala and is it Tate and Cowell, right? You have those two guys. And then Trent Seaborn and also Elijah Haven. Three of those guys all being five-star quarterback prospects, right? Keelan Russell being the assumed starter, Elijah Haven being the blue chip guy that you just signed, and then the other two that I just mentioned. That, again, I'm not trying to exclude them from this conversation. It's just financially, I don't think they're going to be, breaking the bank like some of these other guys. My point is, Keelan Russell in his third year as a starter, you already know that. I mean, he's going to be making quite a good bit of money. Not as much as if you had got him from the portal, but still a good bit of money. Elijah Haven, I know he loves Alabama, but best believe, I mean, you still have to pay a market price, given that other schools, whether it's Georgia, LSU, are trying to get him. My point is, your quarterback room could be costing you $5-6 million easily when you're talking about the guys we have in there. So when you compare that to going and getting a transfer portal quarterback, my whole point is, what Clint was saying was like, he thinks it's significantly cheaper. Personally, just my opinion, I disagree. I don't think it's significantly cheaper when you have 3 5-star quarterbacks in your room, let alone each year you're probably expecting to have to pay a little bit more, given that other teams are going to try to poach those guys. Does that make sense? So if anything, I think it's probably maybe a little bit more even. I just think to make it sound like it's way cheaper. I don't think that's the case personally. I just don't. But we'll talk about that here in a second. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Let's keep on rolling here, but let's do this. I know we're going to dive into some of this NFL talk, but we got Smitty on the phone lines. I don't want to leave him hanging too long. 205-342-9904. Smitty, talk to me. What you got for me on this Talking Tuesday?
Man, I thought you was going on load management like you was in the NBA earlier.
No. Listen, man, the whole system restarted. It was updating. It had no option to do it. So I was like, oh God. And then it just kind of took a second. But no, we're no load management, man. We're going strong, man. Dog days of summer coming up. Wait, listen, we're just getting started, brother. We're ready to roll.
I feel you. Man, couple of things with the whole Ty Simpson thing. You gotta remember, these NFL dorks and these TV dorks, they all about traits. Cause I remember this guy who's on Colin Cowherd. He's a former scout for the Eagles. He actually knows the board pretty well for Fresno. He was talking about traits and stuff. He's the same guy that won't give Bryce Young any credit. But ironically, out of Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson, the small guy's the one that hasn't been hurt that much. He played better than the other two, But people just want to talk about his height, but how you play.
Sure.
But the thing is, people got to understand, you cannot look for a quarterback when you need a quarterback. If you pick it, if he was available at 20, 22, you might as well wait till the second round to get him. Because if he's your guy, you go get him. Because here's the thing that people miss, if I can help you now. You know this, Christian. Your dad knows this. You can find wide receivers anywhere. You don't have to pick one in the first round. You can find receivers second, third round. Heck, Stephon Diggs is a free agent right now. We know all the baby mamas he has. He's going to play his butt off this year if he gets a shot. But
God.
But the thing is, people thought, Stafford came off the MVP. Are they forgetting the man is 38 years old who had a career of back issues? Father Time could tap this. It's like with Tom Brady. His last year, Father Time tapped him on the shoulder midway through. Peyton Manning's last year, Peyton, I think he won the MVP the year before. He had a great year. Guess what? Father Time tapped him on the shoulder. They benched him with Brock Osweiler until the playoff time. And you don't want to be. And plus, if you can be as good as you say you are, no one's going to draft capital for you to get a quarterback if they need one. And I think the reason it was secret, they didn't want the Browns or the Jets to trade up or the Steelers to trade up. Because all these people saying trade down, Christian, the Browns and the Jets had a bunch of picks. They might have taken them. And what do you do then? So I just think that people just look at traits. Because remember, the same folks talking about traits thought Lenore Sells would be the number one pick. Not knocking the kid, but you're speaking ball. But you see how that is.
Well, I mean, a lot of times, when you look at the NFL drafts, Smitty, you do have, it depends on the prospect, right? There are a number of guys who, in fact, get selected because of the traits that they have. Now, at quarterback, you see it. Yeah, Anthony Richardson at quarterback. But, look at the defensive side of things. How many times do we see defensive ends or edge rushers who don't have a whole bunch of production go in the first round over guys that might be double-digit sack guys, but because the guy, even though he had 3 sacks, he's 6'5", 250, runs a 4.5, right? Has all the length in the world. Like, that's a very common thing. So I mean, it depends on philosophy, right? I mean, you look at the Eagles' philosophy. I think their philosophy is, hey, we want guys that come from programs like Alabama, Georgia, proven players, guys that we know are going to be physical. They understand the game of football. They've been in a system that we have seen translates extremely well to the NFL. So, I mean, I think it all just depends. But to your point, right, listen, if he's your guy and you feel like he's your quarterback of the future, I'm not mad at the pick. I mean, could some people argue that maybe it was a little bit earlier than anticipated? Sure, but we don't really know that because we, at the end of the day, won't know if there was another team that would have been willing to take him at 14, 15, or 16. Like, you just don't know. You can listen, like you said, you can listen to all these people talk and say that, oh, he was a late round guy. But how many times have we seen guys that have second round grades get drafted in the first round? I mean, New England took an offensive lineman a year or two ago in the first round that had a second round grade. I mean, like I always say this, man, all it takes is one team to really fall in love with you. That's really all it takes. And they're not going to overly reach, but if you're a fringe first, second round guy and they have a pick in the 20s, if they don't have a good enough, proposal to trade back a few spots, they'll take you a little earlier. So, I mean, I think it probably is a little bit of a blend of that. I mean, they might have taken him a little early, but again, if he's the quarterback of the future, I think it makes sense. And to your point about receivers, yeah, you can find guys later on, but there are some guys that are a little bit different. Jeremiah Smith, listen, that's not a receiver. You take him. You take Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah.
I mean, we can agree on that. So I think it just depends on the prospect.
Yeah, Makai Lemon, I'll take my swing at a quarterback. He's more of a slot guy.
He's a good player, though. Good player. I will say that, though.
Yeah, he's a good player, but we got to remember also, receiver actually has a nice little learning curve. And I remember the people talk Marvin Harrison Jr., and I'm like, guys, I don't know, because I've never seen the boy separate. And guess what he has problems with in the league? He doesn't separate well. And there were people who like neighbors more, but before I talk about these quarterbacks, you saw production, right? It had traits. Shamar Stewart for Texas A&M. I think he had every year in college. He had 1.5 sacks, despite all the traits. Guys, if that size and strength and those traits, you don't got 1.5 sacks per season. Maybe you shouldn't be that guy just because you flip. Anthony Richardson did complete half his passes in college, but yeah, he's supposed to magically complete 60-75% of his passes in the league. Just because he can do a backflip doesn't mean he'll be a good quarterback. But but with these quarterbacks, right? Like what Elijah Havey was talking about. Here's the thing: if that boy want to come to your school, you take him. You figure it out later.
I agree. And let me be clear. Like, just by me bringing up the scenario, like, hey, if you had an option to have 3 5-stars versus 2, then an elite tackle, kind of, how would you manage that? This is me just talking because I'm trying to put my GM cap on. I'm not trying to do Courtney Morgan's job here. I'm just literally just saying, like, I just understand, man. NIL is like, believe it or not, there's a budget, right? I mean, it doesn't grow on trees. So
yeah,
I'm with you. Like, listen, if Elijah Haven, the top quarterback prospect at a high school, wants to come here, you take him, especially after doing your homework and doing your evaluation, and then you kind of figure out the rest. All I'm saying is, let me ask you this, Smitty, and maybe you'll understand where I'm coming from. If you have a quarterback room like next year, which we anticipate having 3 guys, which I didn't realize Jet Smalley was a 5-star, but okay, I guess he is. All right.
Yeah.
You got Keelan Russell, who, let's say he ends up starting this year. You guys realize, man, like, people are going to come and offer these guys stuff. If Keelan has a good year, just like you saw all these other guys, even guys that didn't even start last year, announce they're returning to Alabama. These are like 1-year deals. So you're going to anticipate paying a guy like Keelan Russell even more money next year. So let's say $2+ million. Elijah Haven, I get he loves Alabama, but best believe if he's got an offer from Georgia for $2 million, he might take a little bit of a cut, but you're not getting him for half the money. I mean, that's crazy. Like, it's crazy to think that. So my whole point is, when you start talking about 3 top-tier quarterbacks and then 2 more quarterbacks that are 4 stars they're going to be cheaper for sure. All I'm saying is there's a very real chance the quarterback room costs just as much, if not more, than some of these, portal guys. And all I'm saying is not even that argument, But if you had a choice to say, hey, we have 5 total quarterbacks in the roster, 3 of them are 5 stars, versus maybe drop one of those guys and get us a top-tier offensive tackle, knowing we have not had consistent offensive line play in several years, what would you do?
Here's the thing. Here's how I answer that question. I think they're doing some forecasting also. Because, one, transfer quarterbacks are costing more than these high school guys. And you bring in a transfer quarterback, he's expected to start.
Right.
We just got – so that's one thing. I believe Keelan's going to start. And that means Austin Mack is going to be gone already.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Keelan, who he is, he's a 2-year starter. He's going to the league. But then you got to worry about Jet Tamala and Caden Kava. Caden Kava, I'm sorry. Steve Bourne and Haven. But I think what they're doing is taking swings at it because, hey, if you leave, but we keep taking swings. Because you don't want to be like Texas Tech over here, where your guy out here, bet like he's Pete Rose and stuff, and he's done, and you didn't invest in that position, and now because their immediate backup had an ACL late last season, and the other guy behind him kind of, let's just say, he should be playing on church league. But the thing is, I think what they're doing is because like the transfer guys are going up the prices, and some of those guys aren't really that good. And so maybe they're just taking these guys, taking swings, and hey, you leave, but we got to keep taking swings at it. And plus, you also got to factor in, somebody may just flat out stink, Drew Allen was a 5-star prospect, top quarterback in the class, and that boy stunk like hot dog water. Just being real, But
no, you're right
injury.
Listen, Smitty, you're right on that. I want to be clear. I'm in agreement with that. Taking swings on these guys, really getting them in, developing them, retaining them. Right? I'm with. Listen, I was about to say I'm with all that, but what I'm saying is, don't you think there should be maybe a little bit of a number that we're talking about here? Oh, that's all I'm saying, right? We're because here's my thing. 1 minute, Bama fans are saying Alabama doesn't have a bunch of NIL money. Then the next minute, they act like we can just take 1 million 5-star quarterbacks. And I'm just saying, if we in fact don't have that much money, if you're paying 3 5-star quarterbacks, that could potentially, I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying it could maybe take away from, getting a top tier left tackle who, in my opinion, I'm like, man, I like taking swings, but maybe we'll take 1 less swing. Maybe we'll take 2 swings on 5 stars, maybe not 3. That way, that third swing or that third quote unquote strike, if you're quoting baseball, goes towards a left tackle. That's just me though. That's just my thoughts.
And I'll say this before I run, because I know you're up against it. Thanks for taking my call as always.
Always.
We don't know how much money these folks are getting because none of this stuff is public knowledge. But I wonder how much they're paying Jackson Lloyd. He was a highly rated tackle, right? Michael Carroll's 5-star offensive lineman. And I think sometimes with those, I think they're doing that, and I think that's probably why they're investing in high school where, this, for example, there's a reason Courtney Morgan won a freshman wage scale. There was a time when Sam Bradford came in the league and made as much money as Peyton Manning. I just think we just see what happens, and because none of these guys are guaranteed to stay next year either. So I think that's part of it, but I trust them, and I still think you got to make the special occasion. But you have a good one, Christian.
Yes, sir. You too, brother. Good stuff as always, man. I always appreciate Smitty. All right, we got any time out. We come back. We'll have a couple minutes real quick before we're joined by Clint Lamb. We'll talk to Clint about this because I know his opinion is a little bit different, and I think it'll be a good conversation right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC. All right, let's see what you guys are saying. Y'all picking up what I'm putting down at least? Again, I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with our approach. I like the fact that we recruit guys like this. I think it's great. Clint should be on stream, Brady. Thank you. My whole thing is just knowing that our offensive line has been the biggest issue. Like I feel solid about. I know you guys keep bringing up Ty Haywood's a 5-star, guys, but like he was a 5-star coming out of high school, and I just want to reiterate, like right now he's working with, like the 2s, 3s. I'm not saying he's not a good football player. It's not what I'm saying, but like if you're saying in terms of like how much he might be making, that part I don't know. But I mean, he might have been a 5-star coming out of high school, but where he's at right now, I mean, it's not like you're expecting him to give you 5-star type contribution, I guess is what I'm getting at. You know, it's not just about ratings, right? I honestly, to be honest, I don't really care about the ratings part. Like, I'm just saying in terms of if you're going to be swinging for guys at that that rate, you see what I'm saying? Like, if you're swinging for guys that are blue chip type prospects, I'm just saying there's only so much in your budget. Just like he just mentioned. I mean, that's why they think it'd be very beneficial to have, you know, a freshman cap on how much they're making, which is important. Why? Because what we're talking about. I mean, just like the market for transfer portal quarterbacks are going up, the market for these high school players, guys, that doesn't just sit there and stay flat, right? I mean, so when you have schools like, you know, Texas Tech, Oregon, Ohio State, and they're offering these guys these bags, man, like that's driving the market up. Does that make sense? So that was my whole thing. That's why, like, when I responded to Clint's tweet, all I was saying was, this is what I said. I said, I think it depends on what you assume these top tier high school quarterback prospects are making. Because I think people are assuming that they're just, you know, they're not really making much. Are they making $4 or $5 million? No, probably not. Right? I mean, I highly doubt that. Maybe there could be a school like Texas Tech that would be willing to pay something like that to a guy coming out of high school, but it's not common. Is that what you see out of these transfer portal quarterbacks at this point? Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. Just like Clint ended up mentioning, right? Mensa was $8 million on a 2-year deal. So that's $4 million a year. I know that Miami had offered Ty 6.5. He mentioned that. The guy from LSU and Texas Tech, I think both are in that $5 million ballpark. So I understand that point. But my whole thing is just, I'm not saying to go after a transfer quarterback. I'm saying more so like maybe look at instead of having a room that deep because only one guy can play at a time. It's not like, you know, these are edge rushers. You got like 3 5-star edge rushers are paying a whole bunch of money. All those guys can play. Maybe cut back on one and maybe redirect that money towards another position that could help your football team out. That was my whole deal, or my, I guess, question, I should say. Let's see. I agree with you, Simeo, given the current circumstances, but that's ever changing. So it's definitely subject to big changes coming down the road. Just 2 weeks ago, Jet was y'all's quarterback. Now y'all are saying he's transferring. Well, I guess, I think everybody's kind of basing it off the fact that you just land the number 1 ranked quarterback out of high school. I mean, not all these guys are going to be on the roster. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. You don't really know who, but we'll have to see.
Tide Sports.
And welcome back in for about a minute or so before we hit this top of the hour break. Then we'll be joined by Mr. Clint Lamb himself of Cover Crimson right here on the Miller's Edge. But first, let me remind you about our friends over at Lamparello Law Education and Advocacy. The website is officially launched, so make sure you guys go check them out, man. I'm telling you, they will take care of you, whether it's for those representation needs, if you guys need any type of legal representation, whether it's misconduct, NIL matters, of course, any criminal defense situations, but also they've got you covered in terms of career and academic planning, high school, college, graduate students. They'll take care of you, help you out in the classroom, exam and test taking preparation, subject matter mastery. They've got you covered. 201-317-5115 is how you can reach them on their phone. But of course, Lamparello-law.com officially has launched. It's got all the information on there, including that pricing, which we always brag about, will beat out any competitor, man. So they got you covered for an affordable price. So make sure you guys take advantage of it. Or you can always email Adam himself, adam@lamparello-law.com. Again, that's Lamparello Law Education and Advocacy, the official legal representation here on the Miller's Edge. We got to hit this top of the hour break. When we come back, we got our guy Clint Lamb from Cover Crimson joining us right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC.
TBC Tuscaloosa. And
There we go. Got Clint up there with the read up there. Clint, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing today, brother?
Good, man. Hold on. Wait, I like the backdrop. I like the red going on, man.
Still working on the lighting. Yeah, still not exactly. Sometimes it gets too bright. I'm pale white, so I can't get too carried away with like the bright. So I try to go with the yellows, but then I look on here right before I hop on. I'm like, that's way more yellow than I was intending. So I'll eventually get it right. But with my red hair and pale skin color, I have to be very careful with the lighting I choose.
Looks good, man. Hey, looks
Appreciate
good.
it.
I like it. Yeah, so it looks nice, man. I got to get more lighting for the back. I ordered these. So I use like these stands, these LED stands. I got 2 of them, and I was thinking, all right, I'll put one on each side, and they'll kind of light up everything. But the way my setup is, I'm a little bit further from that wall, and I realized I'm like, okay, I'm probably gonna need like 2 more LED stands. I'm like, this whole thing is just a project. So I completely understand. It worked out good because it kind of, illuminates the rack with the helmet. So it's cool. But then on that side, it's a little bare. So I'm like, all right, we need some more lights, I guess. But it's a process. I can tell you that much. So, it's work in progress.
Yeah, I definitely. I've been wanting to do it for a while. I've just been procrastinating it because I knew it was going to be like putting shelves together and finding things to go on the shelves and moving stuff around. And finally, I decided right after spring ball was over, I was like, let's go ahead and start knocking this out. And then turned it on for the first time. Like I had another camera, turned it on. I'm like, this looks awful. This is nothing like I wanted. And so I've just been trying to tweak things slowly. It's getting there, but it's, as you mentioned, it's like a work in progress. And it just feels like I don't know what I'm doing. So it's all just winging it and turning on different lights and seeing how different things look. And my cousin's really good at that. And I've been trying to get him to come up from Gunnersville to help me with it. And it's just, he hadn't had a chance to. So I guess I'll just continue to wing it until he can get over here.
Hey, well, you're doing a good job, man. It looks good. I enjoy kind of trying to find different things to add. That's why the layout looks different on here. Like every 2 weeks, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna change this. And I have no consistency. Like I'm like,
I'm the same way. Same way with thumbnails. You know,
I do that too.
Yeah, they say to be consistent with that, but then I start thinking about, like, you know what? I like the white background with the red lettering rather than the crimson background with the white lettering. Like I'll switch that stuff up, and my bosses and stuff, they are just like, man, just give us a little consistency with the way things look. So I'm trying to get to that point.
Yeah, trust me. We both are striving for the same. But hey, at the end of the day, man, it's about putting out content and just staying consistent. So you definitely do a good job with that. That's what we try to do here too. Just try to keep it rolling, man. It might look a little bit different, but the message stays the same, man. So.
That's right. That's right.
All right. I think we got a couple minutes. I definitely want to ask you about, I know you saw a respond to that tweet. I want to ask, because that's a good debate, not debate, but more like a discussion, I would say. Because I didn't even realize it had come up. I didn't realize more people were really talking about it. Because I just was, when we were breaking down the commitment, I was like, complimenting Elijah and say, man, like 3 quarterbacks now in a row. I mean, it's almost like a machine, right? Once you show that you can recruit a good player, that said player has success, he goes to the next level, and then you build consistency there. You almost start recruiting itself, if that makes sense. At least that's how I viewed it. But then I was looking from a logistics standpoint. I'm like, that does make me wonder, though. If you could take one of those guys and you free up another 1.5, and there's a blue chip tackle that's 1.5, and say we're acting on a true budget. If there's no true budget, I don't think this matters nearly as much, like some of these other schools. But if we ever get to that point where there's a hard $20.5 million budget, I do think you might have to start kind of looking at, all right, 3 5-star quarterbacks or 2 5-star quarterbacks and a 5-star offensive tackle. I don't know. That's just the way I kind of saw it. But we'll talk about that. I'm going to bring us back real quick, Clint.
Sounds good.
And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. We're now joined by the man himself, Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson, who joins us every Tuesday at the top of the hour. Of course, you can always check out the great work that he does on Cover Crimson, all podcast platforms, on YouTube and X as well, and his personal at Clint R. Lamb. Clint, welcome in, man. Happy Talking Tuesday to you.
Yeah, it's despite the fact that like 8A is come and gone, spring practice is come and gone, this is now going to be the longest, what I would consider, lull. Even the NFL draft content, like I love covering it. I love talking about it. I love hearing people talk about it. But from an audience perspective, I understand a lot of Alabama fans are very college football centric. They want to support the guys who get drafted, but as soon as they know where they went, that's kind of the end of the conversation for a lot of people. So a lot of our stuff that we've done covering the draft, it hadn't been as popular. And it's all about trying to provide, and you understand this as much as I do, giving people what they want to hear and talk about. And so that's kind of been the focus, is finding that sweet spot. The good part about it is we're getting to that point with the recruiting where May and June and July will really start to pick things up on that front. So I'm looking forward to those conversations for sure.
Sounds like I'm going to have to start talking a little bit more recruiting. I always tell people on here, man, they'll ask me like, hey, what do you think about this guy? I'm like, I got to be honest with you. I don't keep up with it a whole bunch, but you're right. You got to talk about what they want to talk about. And sometimes people are like, man, you guys don't talk a bunch of basketball. I'm like, listen, people want to talk football, Alabama football, day in, day out. Even if you think it's getting old, there's always something, even if it's circling back to a conversation. People want to talk Alabama football. So, yeah, I think recruiting is going to be
And
good.
I always tell people, trust me, you want me talking football way more than you want me talking basketball. Because if I'm talking basketball, y'all better have a guest on. We did some stuff with Richard Hendricks, and he does a fantastic job. And that's where I really started to go down that lane, because I felt like I had somebody that could provide information for people. But I can't tell you how many times I've tried to run that stuff myself, and people who actually know what they're talking about are just like, Clint's so far out in left field with this. And it's like, I've always been one of those people that I don't like speaking on things I don't know anything about. And I enjoy watching basketball. I can tell you who scored how many points, who had how many rebounds. But as far as, one thing Richard told me when we were talking, and it was eye-opening, was, just people think if the ball goes in the hoop, you had a good game. And if the ball doesn't go in the hoop, you had a bad game. And he's like, there's way more to it than that. And I'm like, I'm one of those people. If they're knocking down shots, I think they play great. And there is a lot more nuance, like with football. It's one of those things where I always tell people, trust me, you don't want me talking much basketball.
I'm the same way, man. Anytime I was on a basketball court, I just was fouling a bunch of people. I'm not
physical play.
I'm not a technical guy. I'm just a football guy out here at the rec, just trying to guard people because I don't have the best jumper. So there's that. Clint, you mentioned the NFL draft. I want to start there because we're kind of talking about, or planning on talking about, how this upcoming roster could potentially build off what we saw this most recent NFL draft. Alabama had 10 guys selected, 2 in the first round. Some people may be wondering if there was going to be a little bit of a not a drop off, but just maybe if the draft looked a little bit different this season. And I would say it was pretty consistent with what we've seen over the past few years. Now, again, it was very heavy on the day 3 side of things, but still a number of guys that ended up getting their names called, a couple guys that didn't. That might have been some shockers. Deontay Lawson, probably the main one there, Clint. I think people were kind of surprised. My thought on that, this is just my take. One thing I know about the NFL, man, if you're not a starting linebacker, there's a 100% rate that you will be playing special teams. I can't think of how many snaps I saw Deontay play on special teams. And, of course, we all know the injury history. I think those two things combined probably hurt him in this situation. Now, I thought he played a lot better as the season went on last year. It looked like he got a lot healthier and he kind of was returning to form. But it's the NFL draft, man. There's just no telling kind of the grades or evaluations that folks had did. But tell me, Clint, just your overall thoughts, even with the Ty Simpson thing, because we haven't even spoke about that now that I think about it. And going to the Rams, overall, Alabama's draft class, any surprises or fits that you really like? What'd you take away from it?
Obviously, when you get double-digit players drafted, that's fantastic. I was looking at Georgia and comparing it to Alabama. Just from how does Alabama stack up? And granted, I want to say Georgia maybe had either 1 or 2 players drafted in the first round. I know Monroe Freeling went in the first. There's no one else that's standing out that went. So I was
the only one.
Yeah. So I looked at that. I'm like, oh, actually, a lot of people have been complaining about Alabama and the talent and everything else. They ended up having more first round picks than Georgia. Well, then you look at the day 2 picks, and Alabama, I think, ended up with 3 total between first and second round. Georgia had 6 total. So just in that second, third round, they ended up doubling up Alabama. So a lot of Alabama's guys who were drafted 7 of the 10 ended up going on day 3. Certainly not bad. Maybe not to the same extent as fans are maybe accustomed to seeing from Tuscaloosa, but I think that Ty Simpson going number 13 overall, I understand it. I've kind of said a lot of times you take a risk when you draft any player in the first round. And with Trent McDuffie, they had 2 first-round draft picks where they had traded down the year before. and they had got a surefire bona fide starting corner. So you had already kind of given yourself that piece that is going to help your football team in 2026 compared to 2025, and you still had that first-round pick. And a lot of people forget you can still do things as far as the roster is concerned. If you're picking number 32 next year, number 31, despite the fact that it's a really good quarterback class, is there going to be a quarterback if at that point Matthew Stafford maybe he has a little bit of a declining year? You know that he may be 1 year away, and you're trying to figure out how to get your franchise, your future of the franchise in the building. Would you be able to get in within striking distance of being able to draft a franchise, a potential franchise arm? They kind of viewed it as we're picking number 13. I think they wanted to trade down, but as far as being in the teens, they're like, we don't plan to do this very often. And so you can always take what will end up being the number 30 or 31 pick next year, flip that for an A.J. Brown type of player. Not saying A.J. Brown, he feels like he's going to be a Patriot, but you can do that, and then you can shore up your wide receiver room that way. A lot of people – and then it kind of flip-flops, instead of you get the immediate impact from a future pick, but then you get from your current pick, you get a guy who's going to be set up for the future like Ty Simpson. I liked the approach. I think it was a good business decision, both in maybe not necessarily in the short term, but long term. And he's going to be a guy who is really going to fit that Sean McVay system. So I loved that. I loved, where Josh Cuevas ended up as far as the Baltimore Ravens. I think that was a good fit. There were several guys. Justin Jefferson ending up with the Cleveland Browns. They went and got Quincy Williams in free agency. They got Carson Schlesinger. But a guy like Justin Jefferson, you talk about special teams. I think that's one of the big elements that helped him get drafted where he was. But he also is kind of a toolsy guy, not overly big, but he's going to be able to help out both on defense and on special teams. So I think that kind of positions him well to kind of stick around in the NFL for quite a while.
Yeah, LT Overton to the Cowboys is interesting. I think they might be working more of a 3-4 defense, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of wonder how he fits there. Regardless, I love the pick. My uncle's a diehard Cowboys fan and wanted the scoop on him. And I'm like, listen, for the value, I don't know if you'd find a better guy that's built to play the run. He's disruptive. We know his pass rush ability, got great measurables, right? Kind of mentioned him as a little bit of a tweener, just given that, technically he probably could be a 3-4 outside backer in certain situations, situationally, right? Because he does have experience doing that. I think he did that at Texas A&M a little bit.
He did.
Yeah. So, but we also know he can work a 4-eye, sub packages. He'll slide down to a 3. And plus, people have to remember there's different types of 3-4 outside backers, right? Like we used to have a Sam and a Jack. He would not be the Sam, but he could be a big bodied Jack who most of the time, we're playing under fronts. He's going to, have his hand in the dirt, and it's more of like a 4-down look. And Sam, I'm standing up. So I can see something like that. But I think that's an interesting pick there, but I like it. He's teaming up with Quinnen Williams. They drafted Caleb Downs. I thought that was solid. And Damani Jackson, I was talking about him yesterday. I know, people, look at the season he had, and it definitely was not his great year of football. But, behind the scenes, dude was dealing with a lot, physically from an injury standpoint that wasn't really, publicly announced. And I just know as a cornerback, once you kind of lose some of that confidence, man, it can just snowball. It's almost like a pitcher with the yips, so to speak. But I do think a lot of guys landed in some really good spots, and I'm excited for their opportunities, and hopefully they can definitely stick and find their way in the league. I know some of those undrafted guys. Nikhai Hill-Green with the Rams. I wouldn't be shocked if he works his way on special teams and ends up sticking there. Out of those undrafted guys, Clint, anybody that you feel like has the best chance? Because we all know, you can play a decade in the league as an undrafted free agent. Out of those 5 guys, who do you think has the best chance of really sticking in the league?
I think you nailed it. I think Nikhai Hill-Green. Now, I like Jaden Roberts ending up with the Philadelphia Eagles. I know that they got some aging guys that they're trying to find long-term replacements for, so he'll be given some opportunities, I'm sure. But Nikhai Hill-Green, if you're going to be an undrafted free agent, number one, I 100% agree with you that's why Deontay Lawson ended up falling completely out of the draft. I think the injury history, kind of him trying to come back from that injury, you don't know what pops up on the medicals. I'm sure that probably played a part. He was never going to be this. He doesn't have this superstar profile. He's just a very reliable, very good player, that he's a very steady player. But the fact that, he's not going to make a huge impact that we know of on special teams, he's not known for being one of those types of players. Once you hit a certain point, a lot of it is, you're looking for very specialized situational players, guys that fit something that you're looking for, or a guy that's going to be able to help you out on special teams. And so when Nikhai Hill-Green, because he brings that side of it or that element, I think that's going to give him a better opportunity to stick around. Not saying Deontay Lawson won't make the Philadelphia Eagles roster. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he did. But I'm saying that, Nikhai Hill-Green probably will have more of an opportunity with him being more of an established special teams player. So he's definitely one that stands out. And I think that they had multiple guys. So, even Tim Keenan being a guy who went extremely late, being a 7th-round draft pick. I think when you talk about the types of things he can do for you, it's not going to be super valued necessarily in the NFL. If you can't get after the quarterback as an interior defensive lineman, or really just as a guy, on the defensive front at all, there's going to be limited value. But he's one of those guys who can provide something as far as, holding up in the middle of your defense, where he could end up playing a situational role as well.
We're joined by Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson. Make sure you guys check out all the work that they do. You can find them on all your podcast platforms at Cover Crimson, and of course on YouTube and on X, and Clint's personal at Clint R. Lamb. Clint, I want to ask you about this upcoming year in the roster and really look ahead to the 2027 NFL draft. I know you guys and a lot of people have been kind of jumping ahead. Today's our day to do that. Who do you see on this roster that could potentially hear their name called in that, first round, or even I'll say first 2 days, right? Because I think when you look at it, it's kind of hard when you expand it, day 1 and day 2, because from guys like, Jan Pierre, Zabian Brown, I feel like they're definitely in that conversation as day 1 picks for sure. And then I'm probably missing a couple guys here or there. But then you also go to look at even some of these young players. There's literally, even for the following year, I don't want to jump that far ahead, but it looks like Alabama's got a roster that's filled with guys with a lot of upside, a lot of NFL-type potential. But looking at the 2027 NFL draft specifically, who are some names that you would say have a good chance of being early picks?
Well, number one, it is really early. And I always want to remind people, we talk about some of these conversations we were having last year. I thought LT Overton was a rock-solid day 2 pick with the upside, if he could maybe start to finish a little bit better, of being a day 1 draft pick. He was certainly being mocked up there, and it made a lot of sense to me. Now, if you'd have told me that he ran a 4.87 in the 40, I would have probably tempered expectations a little bit, but I still really like the player, and I think Dallas got a really good player. But I always like to start with that, and I like that you expanded it, because if you're holding people to a first-round standard, I think there's not a whole lot of wiggle room there. Like a guy like Jan Pierre, I could totally see him being a first-round draft pick. I really can. I can also see him being one of those types of players who slips to the second. Now, from a measurable standpoint, being 250-plus pounds already, he seems pretty twitched up. I don't think there's going to be anything athletically or length like Cassius Howell. His problem was length, but that caused him to drop to early day 2. I don't think he's going to have any of those limitations, but I also wouldn't be shocked if he ended up being a day 2 draft pick. A guy like Zabian Brown, definitely think he's played like a first-round pick. He's definitely had first-round pick types of moments. But from an athletic profile perspective, do I think he's going to be an elite tester? Probably not. Probably going to be steady. Think he'll check all the necessary boxes. But sometimes when you just do everything well on that front, then there's these other guys who maybe are a lot bigger, maybe a lot faster, and kind of wow you, have a 42-inch vertical or something. Sometimes those guys, the NFL falls in love with those guys. And a guy like Zabian Brown, who's going to be a rock-solid starter for you for a very long time, ends up dropping a day 2. Ryan Williams, the uncertainty with him. Definitely a guy who could go in the first round of next year's draft if he has a strong bounce back season, but from a size perspective, from an inconsistency perspective right now, you just don't know what to expect from him. So while he was once considered a potential top 10 pick for the future, he's far from that right now, which is why I say we can talk about that next wave of guys, the 2028 possibilities, and you just never know. So I definitely think those guys are squarely in the conversation. Guys like Devin Tompkins, I wouldn't really view Caleb Woodson as a day 1 pick, but I think with a lot of what you're seeing as far as them wanting the length and the athleticism combination and off-ball linebacker, Woodson certainly fills those two. Got to see him in a crimson uniform and see how he performs. I think he's got to play better in Tuscaloosa than he did at Virginia Tech, but if he can do some of those things, I think he can climb. And then, I think Bray Hubbard, if you expand it to day 2, I think there will be some athletic limitations, but he definitely feels like a guy who would go second round, maybe third round, and end up, starting in the NFL for a very long time. So I think they got multiple of those players, and it's just a matter of determining who ends up, are able to kind of build on what they've already done in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, it definitely feels like he said very early, right? And so many things can change. Guys that aren't really on the radar could end up working themselves in some of those early round conversations, can't speak, and vice versa. There, like you mentioned, sometimes you have a guy that at one point in their career, even look at all these quarterbacks recently, man. How many quarterbacks have we gone into the season saying these guys are, mocked to be first rounders, and they end up available on the board in the 7th round. I mean, you just never know. Granted, quarterback's one of those positions where it kind of really fluctuates, but I totally agree with what you're saying. Because I want to ask you now about the commitment of Elijah Haven. We'll start there real quick. I know we got a few more minutes left, but kind of what does that commitment mean in your eyes for Alabama, Kalen DeBoer? I mean, it's coming off the heels of the extension with Kalen DeBoer. I know one of the clips I listened to from Elijah, he talked about not only the relationships that he's built with this staff, but also the stability that he was seeking. He just felt like there was some stability here in Tuscaloosa that made him feel comfortable. So what does that pickup mean, getting a guy like Elijah Havens? And then we'll ultimately kind of talk about from the logistics standpoints, what does that mean maybe for this quarterback room?
Well, as far as the physical tools, off the charts, but it's not just physical tools. A lot of times I don't really, nothing wrong with Anthony Richardson, but he was a very toolsy guy who really lacked something. I think more experience on the college level probably would have helped him. But just when he was coming out, you can't argue against, the things that he brings from a physical perspective, the arm strength, the size, the mobility. He was just a special player. But has he become a NFL starting quarterback? No, there's still plenty of time. He's still young. But, it's one of those things where I typically am not one of those guys who just falls in love with the physical tools. I got to see something like, can you play the quarterback position at a pretty high level? And I feel like with Haven, as I watch him, I think he can. I just think that they actually put quite a bit on his plate for a junior in high school as far as allowing him to make some checks at the line of scrimmage, as far as, allowing him to do some things, as far as you're going to see quarterbacks, especially with that kind of talent, they're going to be able to go off script. You want them to be able to do that, but also playing within the system. I think he does that at a pretty high level, seems to process information pretty well for a younger player. And so I look at that type of talent and I'm like, I understand why he's the number one quarterback in the country. And you still want to see continued growth, but the growth that he made going from just his sophomore to his junior year was incredible. And he's always kind of been viewed as this caliber of player, and yet he continuously gets better year over year. So I think a lot of the expectation with him is if he continues on this trajectory, how much better can he be a year from now? And that's really exciting if you're Alabama. Now, as far as kind of where he fits in, I just think that type of talent, if you can land that type of talent, you go after it all day. I think he fits the system. I think he can do everything that you would require out of that position. And I just think that some of the other traits, the size and the fact that he can kind of be a volume runner, I think he can be a threat down there in the red area where things get condensed, add the +1 to the run game. I just think that when he can do all those various things for you, it's a no-brainer. But, absolutely, you got to look at this quarterback room and say, it is littered with talent. They've done a fantastic job of acquiring talent, and now it's just a matter of sorting through it and figuring out who's going to be the one to end up being Alabama's starting quarterback for the future.
Yeah, no, I like a lot of Kyle did some interesting things this spring. He had some opportunities, and he looked to be a good football player. And I know people were kind of discussing, well, Trent Seaborn, what's happening with him now? But if you just look at, the guy's on campus like every weekend, I feel like, not to mention he kind of grew up. I think he's one of those guys. He's Alabama through and through. I think he's even come out and said he's excited to add, to the group in this recruiting class and get out there and compete. And I always, use the example. One of these guys could be a three and out type player. Seaborn, he strikes me as a guy that would be patient. He might not start until his 4th or 5th year, but it only takes really 1 year. And if that's what he, wants to do and he's willing to be patient, I could see that working out just fine. So it's not one of those things where if you take two quarterbacks, it means one will never get an opportunity. There's a lot of different factors here. But that leads me to my next question, Clint, and we can probably wrap up on this one. I know you just got a couple more minutes, but when you look at the logistics of this, I know some people view it as, maybe overspending on the quarterbacks. I don't necessarily view it like that. But when you do look at a world where NIL and your budget, right, whether it's the revenue share cap, which is supposed to be enforced, which we all know everybody kind of goes above and beyond. But even if you just kind of look at it from the lens, well, a lot of people say Alabama doesn't have the biggest NIL budget, but then you see how much you're assuming is being put into these quarterbacks. The way I viewed it, Clint, was even though you're not paying as much as a transfer portal quarterback, which I would say for a top-level quarterback, I think you mentioned 4 to 5. Now we're starting to see like upwards of 6, but we'll go with 4 to 5 because I think that's probably a little bit more, I wouldn't say on record, but that feels a little bit more fitting right now at least. Next year, probably different. But in my mind, I'm like, you still are probably averaging at 7 figures for a lot of these players at least. And then you talk about Keelan Russell going into his third year. He might not be demanding $4 million from Alabama, but even if you're paying him $2 million, that's half of what he could go make. I mean, we just got to be realistic in terms of there. Even if it's not the kid themselves, I don't think Keelan Russell would go to Coach DeBoer's office and say, "Hey, I could go make $4 million. I want $40 million." He's not going to do it. But guess who probably would? His agent or representative. I mean, you just got to think of it like from a pro perspective. So in my mind, when I view it like that, I'm like, there's a chance, and we don't know specific numbers, but this roster could have a quarterback room that's a $5 or $6 million room. You don't know. So it probably ends up being similar to what you'd pay for one of these transfer portal guys. But the way I kind of brought up yesterday was, is there a point where you consider, all right, well, we have the luxury of having 3 5-star quarterbacks. I love the fact that we're taking swings, but knowing what we know about our offensive line, is it worth considering, which I think you anticipate maybe one of these guys leaving anyway, taking maybe the money that you would save from one of those quarterbacks and saying, hey, instead of going for a third 5-star, let's maybe invest that towards a top-tier offensive tackle that we feel is, hey, this is probably a 3-and-out type offensive lineman that we know what we're getting out of this guy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think number one, you and I both, as we know, are working off limited information. This would be so much easier if there was even just reports of what they were roughly making, right?
True.
But what I will say is I look at, okay, for example, Tayden Cowell wasn't expensive. He wasn't. Trent Seaborn, despite the fact he's a 4-star recruit, I don't think he was that expensive. I think he really wants to be in Tuscaloosa. I think even guys like Jet Tomala. I mean, this is a guy who was an Iowa State commitment. He was a very low-rated 4-star. You probably did give him, some amount of money, but did you pay him what a 5-star would be getting paid? Probably not. Now, granted, by the time he was rated a 5-star, is Jet Tomlin the type of player who came to Alabama and said, hey, I'm a 5-star now. I need you to up my NIL if I'm going to sign on the dotted line? Probably not. Even Keelan Russell. Now, granted, Keelan, you need to have a different conversation once they start entering year 2. That's the expectation. Right. But even Keelan, it's kind of the same thing. He was a 3-star recruit, committed to SMU, and Alabama got him. I'm sure they gave him a very respectable NIL package. But was he commanding the type of money based off of where his final ranking was? Probably not, because he wasn't ranked when out. And those types of players, they're not going to come and say, hey, I'm rated a lot higher. I deserve more. So I'm not saying that Alabama's not taking care of these guys. I just don't know what that means. And if they did go back to them and say, hey, you are rated as a 5-star, we're going to give you a little bit more. Or if it's, Keelan Russell now entering year 2, it is time for a different conversation. And from my understanding, Alabama is pretty proactive and pretty good about understanding a player's value. And I don't think players are having to chase them asking for more money, or agents are having to chase them. I think it's them saying, hey, we like what, like a Jackson Lloyd, he didn't do anything. He played 41 snaps this past season. So nothing on the field, but the coaching staff really liked how he was developing behind the scenes. They definitely viewed him as their left tackle of the future. And so there's an approach and a conversation of, we like where you're heading. We've definitely value you, and we're going to take care of you. I think that's where this staff is kind of building things. Now, granted, and I think that right now, like, you take such a risk. A lot of times these transfer portal quarterbacks are going to come in and they're going to be dudes for you. We've seen it time and time again. I mean, Fernando Mendoza just won the Heisman Trophy in his lone season in Indiana. But at the same time, when you are investing more so in the long term, you're getting multiple options. You're letting those options kind of sort themselves out. And then, the following year, if a guy approaches you wanting more money, but it's like, we're not really seeing him as a long-term fit, you might sit there and tell him, hey, we just don't have it for you. And if he chooses to leave, at that point, you're letting everything work itself out. If it's a guy that is a must keep, you'll figure out a way to keep him. I think you can make some of this stuff work, but we are working off of limited information.
Absolutely. And I want to be clear. I mean, I like the approach that they take. I've always said, recruiting your core group of football players from high school, like good quality players, whether it's Sadarian Morgan, Jackson Lloyd, Michael Carroll, the list goes on, right? Xavier Brown. And then you just patch those holes via the portal. I think that's probably the best of both worlds and the best case scenario for any school, in my opinion. However, I just view it, I'm like, man, if you are, in fact, working with a true budget, which everybody's supposed to be, I just wonder at some point, do you have to start making those decisions? Again, I still want to recruit 5-star quarterbacks, but if it gets to a point where you had to choose between the two, if I put my GM cap on, I'm just saying, I personally would say, all right, we got 2 5-star quarterbacks here. If we had to make a decision, I just know how important trench play is and how inconsistent it has been here in Tuscaloosa. And I think that's the only reason that comes to my mind even when you sign a guy like Elijah Haven, I'm just like, all right, we got another blue chip quarterback prospect. I love it. But what are we putting in front of this guy to make sure him or whoever comes in after him has success? And we're not looking back again like saying, hey, but we had these players, but we couldn't run the ball, but we couldn't protect them. And knowing that's really what separates good to great to elite football team. So I think it's a very interesting topic and a great discussion to have because, I mean, listen, we're in that world now where that's why GMs are making so much money in college football. They have to make these decisions on a daily basis. I'll be the first one to tell you I completely trust Courtney Morgan a lot more than I do. I trust myself, I should say, because I'm not doing it every day. Like you said, we don't have these concrete numbers. So just a fun conversation, discussion to have. But Clint, as always, man, thank you so much for joining us, man. It's been fun today. I really appreciate you hopping on here. And, of course, tell everybody how they can listen to you and all the good work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, I appreciate it as well. Great conversation. You can find me at Clint R. Lamb on Twitter. You can find me on the Cover Crimson YouTube channel. And then also we got the podcast. Cover Crimson Podcast Network is where you need to search if you're on Apple or Spotify or wherever. But once again, Christian, I appreciate you having me on, and we'll definitely have to do this again next week, brother.
Yeah, thank you, man. Absolutely. Hopefully we got some more conversations and maybe another big recruit. I don't know. Recruiting season's upon us, so we'll have to see.
But yeah, for sure, man. Good talking to you, brother.
Yes, sir. You too, man. Take care, Clint. Good stuff, man. Our guy, Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson, who joins us on Tuesdays at the top of the hour. We appreciate him. We got to hit a timeout. When we come back, we'll keep on rolling right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC. Do you have crack? Good stuff, man. Really good conversation. Always appreciate Clint, man. Make sure you guys go check out all the stuff they're doing. I know pretty much everybody, I think, listens to Clint and those folks over on Cover Crimson. But if you haven't checked them out, make sure you guys go do that, man. They do an awesome job, man. Always enjoy having Clint on here, man. Reed, I apologize. I know our schedule's kind of all in the weeds right now. What I can do is I can come back for like 2 minutes break and then come back again for another short one. You just tell me which works best, Reed. All right, perfect. We'll do that. Gonna need a lowdown on where to grab that hat. Oh, now this one, y'all can find this one. The other ones, y'all want the Dolly Tide hats. I'm gonna have to get those made because that was like a custom-made hat. This one I got from a website called Culture Kings. Now it says Los Bravos, which is the Braves in Spanish. And a matter of fact, it was on sale. So I'll have to find the link. But if you look up Culture Kings, then look up, I guess, Braves, or probably more specifically Bravos, which is, basically it's Bravos. I think it should come up. But yeah, it was dope, man. I just saw it and it was on sale, and I was like, damn, that's perfect. It kind of fits the theme of me rocking the Spanish-inspired sports hats. Don't hurt your brain, Christian. They just won't do it in fear that the next after is going to want a big payday. So they're not trying to set that precedent. Bama has set a hard line with NIL funds. Any players on Bama that didn't come for the money? Oh, listen, brother. I mean, I'll tell you, brother. I mean, I think I know as good as anybody, man. I mean, I know a lot of people in that building. I mean, I have, ideas, or not even ideas. I know numbers on a number of those guys. But that's kind of my point, though. I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, we are a lot less flexible when it comes to just, handing out bags. I mean, I agree with you on that. However, there's no denying it, right? I mean, like, there's going to be certain players that you just have to pay more for, or you're going to have to make that decision. I mean, that's just a fact, bro. That's just how stuff works. Like, as much as people want to believe, like, and I'll be the first one to tell you, like, do people take less to come to school here? They do, sure. But when you're talking about, like Clint mentioned, going on year 2 or year 3, I'm just telling you, man, like, if you got schools offering, you're talking like a lot more money, you're not going to really have a choice but to have to pay a little bit more. I mean, it's a market value. And to be fair, it's not the kids, right? It's not these kids going and doing that. They have agents, they have representation. So just picture it as if, like in the NFL, I mean, guys love their teams and want to play for these teams. At the end of the day, their agent, when it's time to get a new contract, what are their agents doing? Their agents are working for them because their agents want them to make as much money, and the agents also want to make money. And so that's why these one-year contracts, man, is tough, because really you really have a system where every year these agents can go back to these GMs and pretty much say, hey, this is his value now. We're getting offers from here, here, and here. And then that's on the GM to make a decision. Do they want to then pay more for said player to retain them, or can they figure something out or not? And I guess at the end of the day, a kid could just tell their agent to screw off. I want to play football here, but that's just, I mean, you're talking big money, man. I find it hard to believe people would just be that willing to just say, I'm gonna pass up on X, Y, Z. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday. This is the Miller's Edge, Tide of 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Really good conversation with our guy, Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson. If you guys missed it, I'm going to clip it up and post it separately, because I know you guys really enjoy when Clint comes on here. So we'll definitely get that for you. If anybody missed it or you just want to rewind, you guys can also do that as well. Really good conversation today, Reed. I know we've talked about it a little bit already. We just talked about it with Clint. I'll read some of you guys' chat here in a second. But first, we do got to get caught up a little bit. So let me remind you about our friends over at R&R Cigars. Now, today's a little bit of a stormy day, so you probably don't want to take advantage of the porch. However, the good news is the mansion is obviously, they've got indoors, man. Plenty of, what do they call, humidifiers and things like that allow you to just sit back, relax, and kick it over there. So if you guys want to find a place to go hang out, enjoy a nice stick, heck, maybe host a Bible study like my dad does. For whatever reason, he always finds himself hosting Bible studies at cigar lounges. Maybe Reagan will let you guys do that. Check out R&R Cigars. You can always use that code Miller's Edge on their website, rnrcigars.com, to get yourself a nice discount, whether it's for you personally, or they always make great gifts. And don't forget, if you do go on over and check out R&R Cigars, they've got plenty of drinks for you, over 160 bourbons there. Drink responsibly, of course. But in terms of the environment, you like sports talk, you like cigars, a nice drink to pair up with it, man. You can't beat R&R Cigars. 2703 Gary Fitz Street here in Tuscaloosa. And, of course, that website, rnrcigars.com, code Miller's Edge, and free shipping if your order qualifies. Again, that is R&R Cigars, the official cigar provider of Alabama football since 2014. And, of course, here on the Miller's Edge as well. All right, we got to hit another timeout. When we come back, we keep on rolling on this Talking Tuesday edition. I think we're open on the phone lines. Anybody want to respond to what we've been talking about? Whether that's the whole, NFL draft recap we've been talking about, looking ahead, who do you guys feel could be first rounders in the 2027 NFL draft, or really day 2 picks as well? And then, of course, the conversation. If you were putting your GM cap on and say there was a hard cap and you had to, decide between taking one guy or another, how would you kind of go about that? Maybe we'll expand a little bit, Reed. Maybe we'll play a game, and we need to do this one day, kind of break it up into tiers of players by position and say you got $25 million to work with. How would you assemble your team? I think I'm going to make a graphic and post that on our X account, but I think that'd be a fun game to play and see what people come up with.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think we should do that. Hopefully we got to get on it now. If people heard us say it. Now they're going it's a race to make the graphic. We'll do all that.
They're going to hold us accountable.
We'll do that when we come back right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Do you have cracks or potholes that are dragging down your property's appeal? Yeah, we need to do it ASAP, man. I know somebody's going to take that idea. I shouldn't have said it on live radio, man. It's part of it, man. It's part of it. Just let us do it first, man. Let us do it first. Matter of fact, let me try to just grab my phone, man. I like doing it on camera, but dude, ChatGPT and AI is just so fast. Like, now granted, there's a lot of mistakes that it makes, but that's what we need to do. And we'll do 20. I know the cap's not $25 million right now, but I think that would just kind of make it easy. Right, exactly, Reed. I think that would make it a little bit easier instead of saying 20.5, because it's supposed to go up annually. But we'll say $25 million if you had to put together, and we'll just do starters. We'll do starters. Let me try to do this real quick. All right, let's see. I'm not going to be able to do this real quick. Well, now I think, oh man, yeah, I can't do this one. I'm going to try to do it while I do it. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Let I like to build a team inside out. If your trenches are elite, you can get away with average skill players. But see, that's kind of the point that I'm making. Like when I'm not criticizing what they're doing when they're building their roster. Like I'm just saying, if it was me building a team and I had a certain budget to work with, that's the mindset that I would have, where I would say, like, I'm going to try to get as many of those, quarterbacks. I know how important quarterback play is. But if there ever was a conflict, let's just say this. If there's no conflict, if there's no conflict financially, listen, we're going to keep recruiting these dogs at quarterback. I mean, we're going to keep pumping them out, right? I want a system going. But if there was ever, same as building a house, all about the foundation. But if there was ever a conflict, or you're saying, all right, man, we got X amount of NIL dollars to work with. We already got 2 5-star quarterbacks on the roster. Now, I'm not saying pass up Elijah Haven. I want to be clear on that. But I might say, hey, we're going to see what our quarterback room looks like this year. We're going to take Elijah Haven, but we're going to have in our mind that we're probably going to cut the cord on one of our guys. And I know that sounds messed up, but I'm just telling you, man, like they do that in the NFL. That's kind of the way college football is being modeled right now, right? They have year-long contracts where they can kind of respectfully urge guys to maybe transfer out. And I'm just saying, if it was me, maybe that's how I should word it, and it'll make a little bit more sense, right? Like, just like in the NFL, you only have a 53-man active roster. I mean, teams typically keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster. You're not going to see a team that has 3 starting caliber quarterbacks on their 3 deep, and you're paying them as such. So that's kind of, I guess, like the premise I was going off of. You might see 2. I mean, I know, the Giants had Russell Wilson. They had Jameis Winston, and then also they drafted Jackson Dart, but didn't they end up getting rid of one of them at one point, or trading one of them? So that's just kind of how I kind of visualizing this whole thing. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Reed, I'm going to work on this graphic, but I mean, let's just try to play this game a little bit via the radio. Now, I don't know exactly how. Well, let's start with offense. So we'll cut it to 24 million, because we'll say just 12 and 12. We'll say we're budgeting 12 on offense and 12 on defense. Now, I guess I need to do the logistics a little bit more, because when you see these things, you normally got like a $5, $4, $3, $2, $1 tier. So I guess if we did that with millions, I'm not gonna lie to you, that would be a little bit tough to really do. But I guess we could figure it out, or maybe we should just do 3, 2, 1. That's probably better, right? We could just do 3, 2, 1. So if you were building a roster and we did 3, 2, 1, $3 million, $2 million, $1 million, which is still way too much. Maybe we should cut it. Dang, I might need to think about this, because the reality is you're not going to have that. When you pick the rest of these guys for 1 million, we're going to have to maybe do 3, 2, 1, and then 500K. I think that could be solid. Or if we add a 5th one, do 250 as well. All right, maybe we won't play this right now, but maybe that's what we should do. What do you think about that, Reed? Like, let's talk this through, even though we've already spilled the secret, man. We know this is coming. We listen, somebody else that makes content is going to have this damn list out before us. Then I will be heated, but it's all good, man. We're talking you guys heard it first. If you hear a build a roster graphic, or you see one, I should say, just know it was born right here on this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge. Reed, let's talk through this so we can get this put together after we get off air. 3 million, 2 million, 1 million, 500K, 250K, maybe 5 different tiers, and then 12 mil for offense, 12 mil for defense. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty solid format. I think that pretty suits it, because I guess it really depends. Like, at least splitting it half and half. I think half and half is, fair, but like, do we feel like, and maybe that's a question for, you to answer. Do you feel like, if you're the GM, are you splitting it half and half, or are you kind of leaning more toward the defense or more toward the offense? And plus, you know what I mean? Like, it really depends on the scheme.
That's a good question. Listen, if it was me, like, before we get into the specifics, if I'm building a football team, let's backtrack. I guess we did jump the gun. So thank you for reeling us back a little bit, Reed. That's a fair point. let's just talk about where we would invest most of our money. We'll start here. I know you guys in the chat are talking inside out, outside in, right? I think most good football teams / franchises / organizations typically go inside out, right? I always use the example of, the Philadelphia Eagles past couple of seasons. I mean, you look at their offensive line. I mean, they invested heavily in their offensive line. And they drafted Jalen Hurts as a second-round pick, if I'm not mistaken. People are wondering why they drafted him at the time. It was a little bit of a luxury pick. Clearly worked out. He led them to 2 Super Bowls, right? Winning one of those Super Bowls and also being named MVP. And this is not to take anything away from Jalen, because I think Jalen is a phenomenal quarterback. But one could argue that, there's other quarterbacks on other teams that haven't had the success that he's necessarily had, that people might rank a little bit ahead of Jalen, even though I think Jalen is definitely one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Don't get me wrong. But if you look at the way the roster was built for Philadelphia when they were winning Super Bowls, they have an offensive line unit that was literally top 2 in the National Football League, right? I mean, most people regarded them as the top unit, but I mean, maybe from a statistic standpoint, I don't know. Maybe it's top 2, top 3, I don't know. But you look at that, you look at a defensive unit where if you go back to the Super Bowl that they won, I mean, Reed, look at how dominant that defensive performance was. I mean, they were all littering the whole backfield, right? I mean, disruptive as can be. I can't remember how many sacks that they had. Josh Sweat had a big game. I mean, they just across the board. And granted, a lot of these guys were guys that they had drafted, or there are a lot of younger guys that they were working with. So they didn't necessarily go spending a whole bunch in free agency, if I remember correctly. But what I'm getting at is they put a lot of attention on defense. So if I'm building a football team, that would probably be my personal approach. Number one, we're going to play some damn good defense, which means we're going to have to invest heavily in our defense. I'm going to invest guys in the trenches, right? I want some dudes up front. But I also know I'm going to have to get some corners that can cover. I need some guys that can play man coverage. I need some guys that can defend their turf, right? So I want some good secondary play, but across the board, I want good defense. But up front, man, we got to stop the run first and foremost. So I'm going to get some dudes up front. Definitely got to have some good pass rushers. But see, so it gets expensive. So to answer your question, might be a little bit more money put on the defense, maybe like a 60-40 situation. I think it all depends. But like, I don't want just one good edge rush. Like I want a couple guys that can get after the quarterback. I know how important that is. And I'm a little biased, man. I played edge. We need us a guy at linebacker, right? He might not necessarily have to be Luke Kuechly in terms of like just how good he is. He needs to be good, but he needs to have Luke Kuechly type leadership and intellectual ability to be the quarterback of the defense. That'll be big for me as well. So I'd have to put some money there. Man, yeah, that's tough. But in terms of offense, man, I'm definitely going to make sure we have some dudes up front. But you still, at the end of the day, you still got to have guys that can make plays. You need playmakers. But maybe it looks a little bit more like New England approach. How much do they spend on their wide receivers? Probably not like a whole bunch. I mean, one of my teammates, Chris Hogan, I don't know if you remember him. He played with New England. Amendola. Guys like that. I mean, I don't think those were big money wide receivers. Now, I'd probably have maybe another, I guess, receiver or two that was a little bit more of a dude, but I don't know, Reed. I mean, that's kind of my approach. I mean, I definitely would want a good quarterback for sure, but I personally believe, depending on the system that you're running, I've seen a lot of game managing quarterbacks have a lot of more, not necessarily like a lot more success individually, but when you talk about winning championships, how many times have we seen game managers go and win it all versus guys that are the game changers not really have as many Super Bowls to claim? I don't know. I almost would argue that you might have more game managers as Super Bowl or just champions in general than you do really having game changers. And I could be totally wrong. But it's just when I think about a lot of these teams that have won in recent years, I think a lot of times you got quarterbacks that play really well within the system, and they have a hell of a supporting cast versus some of these other teams that have dudes at quarterback, game-changing type quarterbacks. For some reason, I feel like they don't always have as much success. I don't know. Maybe we have to think about that. We need to hit a timeout to stay on schedule. So let's do that. We'll hit a timeout. We'll think about that. I want to get y'all's thoughts. Are game managers typically more likely to win championships or game changers? That's kind of an interesting question. We'll answer that when we come back right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC. Do you have cracks or potholes that are dragging down your property? Man, what do you guys think about that? Are game changers less likely to win Super Bowls or just championships? I feel like game managers, when I just think about, I mean, let's go back. Let's think. I mean, Kansas City, they've got Pat Mahomes. He's a game changer. So I mean, we gotta give a point to the game changers on that one. Pat Mahomes is a game changer. Jalen Hurts is a tough one, man. Do you label Jalen as a game changer or a game manager? Excuse me. I feel like if I'm being honest, I feel like Jalen kind of trends a little bit more towards game manager. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Jalen can change a game. I mean, Jalen is a hell of a quarterback, but I almost feel like the way he plays within Philly's system. That one's a tough one. I'm curious y'all's thoughts on that one. Let's see who else. Last year, I mean, Sam Darnold. Man, Sam played some damn good football last season. But do we consider him a game changer? I would argue Sam's more of a game manager type quarterback. Really depends, too, on your definition of game changer and game manager, man. Man, it's a good question. I wish we talked about this earlier, man. I mean, I feel like this is definitely – I mean, this is a damn good question, I feel like, because this really drives a good conversation, man, because, I mean, it depends really how you look at it. Hurts is a game changer, but he plays like a game manager. I can get behind that. That's why I'm saying he's kind of – to me, it's kind of like a little bit of both. He kind of does play like a game changer, or excuse me, game manager in that system. But I think he does have game changing ability, though. But when you look at how the Eagles are built, man, with Saquon Barkley and the receiving core that they have, I mean, he doesn't really need to do too much. You know what I mean? So like, I think he has some game changing ability, but he's not really required to do much when he's got the weapons that he has. Again, that's not knocking him, and I'm not saying just anybody could get plugged in that offense and they'll be successful. I just think that plays a role. Let's see. Lamar's one of the best game changers ever, but lacks pieces elsewhere. Yeah, exactly. He's one of the big examples I would go with when you talk about game changers having a hard time really winning at all, because there's only so many things that. Whoops. Okay, I was like, whoa, my screen just shut off. That was weird. There's only so many things one guy can do, man. You need game changers for consistency. I almost would argue that game managers are a little bit more consistent, if I'm being honest with you. I feel like what comes with game changers is kind of like high risk, high reward. Sometimes if their performance fluctuates, generally speaking, the team's performance is a little bit more affected, in my opinion, versus a game manager. You typically have a very solid running game that you can rely on. You know what I mean? Like, man, this is a good conversation, man. I feel like we could talk about this for days. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday. This is the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC. Reed, I got to ask you, man, now that the conversation's kind of segued a little bit, man, game changer versus game manager, man. We're talking about, building a football team, right? And kind of your, I guess, philosophy if you were putting your GM cap on and we're putting that position. But when you get to the quarterback position, man, this is an interesting question. You can ask your guy behind you, too. I don't think I've met him before, but
yeah,
listen.
Christian, this is Whitman.
All right,
Hey,
Whitman, nice to
how
meet you,
doing,
man.
I'm,
Yeah, man.
Hang out with Wyatt during his show, and I'm actually hosting his show this week while he's on vacation. So excited.
Oh, nice.
Nice
well,
to
good
meet
deal,
you.
man. Yeah, absolutely. You too, man. Well, here you can answer this too, man. We're talking about building a football team. We're at the part where, listen, your philosophy as a GM, You know, we're talking about if you're going to invest heavily, at least this is my approach. I'm building inside out. I want good offensive line play. I want guys in the trenches. I'm going to put a lot of money there. I might not have as much money left over to have that true game-changing type quarterback. Of course, we're going to strive for it, but when you look at two different quarterback styles, man, what do you feel like typically leads to more success from a team standpoint? Obviously, individually, game changers are probably going to outperform the other guys statistically, but when I think of guys that win a lot of championships, I think there's a lot of game manager type quarterbacks. What are your thoughts on the game managers, versus game changing, I guess, quarterbacks?
I think there's a superb amount of logic behind the game manager argument because, I heard on the way over here, I heard you guys talk a lot about it. Your money's going on the offensive and defensive line, and you're not alone in that thought. I don't think there's a football coach in America, be it G5, Power 5, NFL, that thinks that they can win a game without a strong offensive and defensive line. And, you hear a lot of talk about teams being a quarterback away, these very, very talented franchises or programs, if it's in college, where they really are just a quarterback away. And that guy doesn't always have to be that game changer, Heisman winner, MVP, depending on what you're talking about. But I think, if you want to be game managed to a championship instead of game changed to a championship, you better have the guys in the trenches, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to win a championship without a big time throw. I don't care how good your running back is, how good, your defense is. You're going to need a big time throw or two to get through playoffs, to get to a championship at whatever level you're playing. So if you're going to go the game manager route, you really need to make sure that your offensive line is in the upper echelon of your competition. But even if you go with the game changer guy, I don't know how much I'd sacrifice on that offensive line. I think there's definitely a happy medium where I say, you don't go full Kirk Cousins, but you also just don't abandon it and go full Lamar Jackson either. I think there's a lot to be desired for that middle ground kind of. Maybe if you're looking at the professional route, maybe like a Jordan Love type guy who, if he needs to, can sit back and put up 40 passes in the pocket, but is also very capable of moving, extending, gaining. So I'd say if you're building from a ground up, I'd go game manager and worry about building the team around him, because we see it every year with first round picks. The guys that get drafted first overall, they're supposed to be game changers, but you can't elevate a JV squad to a Super Bowl championship. You can elevate a playoff team to a Super Bowl, but if you don't have the guys around you, a game changer is kind of useless outside of the jersey sales.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. And it's kind of interesting when you compare Philadelphia and how they're built versus, say, New England with Tom Brady, right? Very similarly built, really good defenses. They have good offensive line play. But then the difference here, in my opinion, is, the quarterback play for New England was like superior. Then they kind of had budget weapons. Then you look at the Eagles. Now, I'm not saying Jalen's a damn good quarterback, but I would say they invest a lot in the weapons and have a quarterback that maybe isn't necessarily Tom Brady. So it's kind of interesting. I think both work. Just really depends on the philosophy. But at the end of the day, I think the similarities there are really the trench play and the defensive play. I think those are kind of non-negotiables. The other stuff you can tweak it, and mess around with a little bit. But I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting conversation that just kind of randomly came up as we were talking about building college football rosters, which is totally a thing now. We got to get out of here and make room for you guys coming up next, which is Whitman, who you just heard from there. Good to meet you, brother. Have a great show. And we'll be back here tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Hope you guys enjoyed it and look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.
You've been listening to the Miller's Edge, tackling sports daily.
WTBC Tuscaloosa.
All right, good deal, man. Good deal. Appreciate you, Reed, man. Take care, brother. Good stuff. Yeah, I'm probably about to get out here in a minute, but real quick, if you guys haven't, man, hit that like button. We definitely appreciate that on your way out. Really good conversation today. Appreciate Clinton joining us. We'll have that clipped up and posted here in a little bit. That way you guys can just go watch it directly if you missed it or want to go back and see it. But yeah, I'm going to read through some of these comments, though, because I think that's an interesting conversation. I'm curious what you guys would do if you had to put yourself in that position. Prescott, Elite tight ends are a problem. Your matchup nightmare. Yeah, well, listen, yeah, we got to get a. I always talk about that, man. All the successful teams always have themselves, really good tight end play. I mean, it's tight end's like a security blanket for the quarterback. Whether it's Travis Kelce with the Chiefs. I mean, you look at the Ravens, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson. I mean, the list goes on, man. Gronkowski with Tom Brady. All the good football teams always have themselves a really good tight end on their roster. So Tom was never the highest paid quarterback at any time. Nah, he wasn't. But, instead of the difference I was trying to explain was the Eagles, they invest a lot in their skill guys. They go get Saquon Barkley. They got A.J. Brown. They've got Devontae Smith. They signed all those guys to long-term deals versus New England. They were taking some of that money and more so putting it on the defensive side of things / some offensive linemen, I believe, right? But they never heavily invested in their skill positions. That's what I'm saying. I mean, and listen, there's a number of ways to skin a cat, but at the end of the day, I mean, I think the common thing here with all these successful football teams is the trench play is point of emphasis. And that listen, in the circle and put a bow on this whole conversation. That's where my whole perspective comes from. Not saying there's a bad thing to take Elijah Haven. If anything, I think it's a huge pickup. I want to be clear. This whole discussion has nothing to do with that or saying like, oh, we should take a transfer portal quarterback instead. I've not once said any of that. I want to be clear. I didn't say that. But my thing is, if it were to get to a point where you had to make that decision, personally, if it was me, I would take, less on the quarterback side of things because I feel like we've recruited really well there. Not saying skip out on Elijah Haven, but I'm saying maybe, let one or two kind of see themselves out, respectfully, of course, and really try to, bolster up that offensive line unit. I'll be honest with you guys, like, if Coach DeBoer, number one, can make sure he has, all the right pieces around him, which we've seen them make some of those changes this offseason, right? It's unfortunate in terms of, on the personal side of things, but it's a part of it. It's part of the business. Moves had to be made. If he can continue kind of getting the right pieces around him, and I truly believe that they can figure out the offensive line play up front, then also maybe, really on the defensive side of things, just kind of really, restore some of the, like just some dudes on the defensive line that can get after the quarterback, that can be some game changers, really trench play, right? If he could find a way to really bolster the trench play, I'll be honest with you, I think there's a good chance that he could win himself a national championship here. Like, all seriousness. I mean, they recruit well at the quarterback position. They recruit really well at the skill position. We've seen that this offense can be very effective. I mean, it was one of the better offenses nationally for one half of the season. The problem was the consistency. That needs to be better. But I think if they bolster the trench play, I think that could really fix so many of these question marks that this football team has. Like, honestly, I really do. So we'll have to see. But I think if that gets cleaned up, man, I think the way they're doing it, they're building something that could really be sustainable, right? The way they're recruiting and retaining. And also, I think it could be very successful, man. We're only 2 years in. So I think I think that's part of the process. Each year they're trying to, reassess, see what they need to maybe change here or there. I still feel like we haven't put enough emphasis on the trench play, just my opinion, but hopefully that's the next thing to come. But we'll have to see. Personally, would have preferred that they made a big money play for at least a couple top-notch offensive linemen rather than just stacking the quarterback. Yeah, and that, like I said, that's kind of where I was going with that thing. And I'm not saying, again, I like the Elijah Haven pickup, but I guess what I'm saying is I would be even more thrilled if we landed 2 5-star offensive tackle hold on, sorry, I'm trying to grab something. I basically think I'd be a little bit more thrilled if we landed, knowing our issues when I look at, this football team. If we were to land like a, top 5 offensive tackle, and I turn on his tape and this guy, because again, we're talking about Elijah Haven, like the measurables, the traits, all that stuff. Man, If we land a tackle like that, I'm just telling you, like that I think that would be huge, man. Probably gonna be a little bit more difficult because when you have a positive track record with, with quarterback, it probably makes it a little bit easier. We just had a change at that position group, so I mean, in terms of the coach, right? We got a new position coach, so probably might be a little bit more of a tough sell for some of these guys, but man, give me 2 5-star offensive linemen, man. Shoot, I'm with it. Culture and scheme this regime believes in is never a lot. We've seen it in 2 years. Well, and I hear what you're saying because I agree. I just think the way they kind of go about it is like you said. I mean, they're really gonna aim for they're gonna put a lot of money in their skill players, their quarterbacks. I mean, like that is at least that's how the philosophy feels here, right? With the staff. Which, I mean, that's their system, and they've had success. So, I mean, I'm not saying it can't work, but I just think and I think this is what's gonna happen because you can kinda sense it, right? I think each year Coach DeBoer is learning. He's adapting a little bit. Like, I think he's starting to kinda to look and say, "All right, maybe we need to adjust this a little bit." And hopefully that comes the next thing to come in the near future will be the attention to the trench play, right? Like, I would love to see that be the next thing. I think that'd be big. I mean, if they could get some dudes in that offensive line, man, I think that would answer a lot of question marks and defensive line. I think both. Yeah, no. I'm not saying pass on Haven. I'm saying again, take Haven, but maybe find a way to still squeeze in some of these top tier because I think we're trending for like a 5-star wide receiver. I just would love to see us trend for some of these. I don't even know who the top offensive linemen are. I genuinely don't even know. But that's just my opinion. But that said, going to get out of here. Appreciate you guys. You guys know the drill, man. If you haven't, man, hit that like button. It takes 2 seconds. It helps us out tremendously. And we appreciate you guys always hanging out with us and look forward to doing it again tomorrow.